Well, welcome, everyone. I'm glad you're here. We're going to talk about content creation, the impact that it's had on my career, but I want to start by actually talking about the impact that it's had on some other people's career. So I asked on Twitter recently, just kind of as preparation for the talk, and maybe add some additional talking points or just be able to highlight a few people's comments. What impact has content creation had on your career? I got lots of really good responses, so I wanted to highlight some of those just to show you that, yes, I'll talk about my career, I'll talk about things that have worked out well for me, but this has been a true story for a lot of people. So I asked it on Twitter. Izzy, who has an awesome TikTok that you should check out, also on Twitter, responded, networking opportunities and side income. Also, mental health has improved from using content creation as an outlet. How cool is that? It's something that's just purely all from my mind and heart. It's really natural to who she is. The mental health aspect of that is probably something you wouldn't think of, but is really interesting here and really special, I think. Brian Morrison, when he joined his former company, I believe, when he was interviewing, they told him they knew that they wanted to hire him based on his live streams and his content, and they just wanted to interview him basically as a formality to make sure that the person in the interview added up with who they saw on stream. He got his new job that way. Content creation changed his life. Matias, who has a podcast, Cafe Con Tech, in Spanish, which I did a few years ago. That was very nerve-wracking. Mentioned side income, increased confidence in what he knows, communication skills, and improvements on how he learns. Julia started doing freelance content creation for money, totally fair, and visibility while looking for a full-time job, and now that has become her job as a developer educator, developer experience, that sort of stuff, with content marketing, real tech content, and less BS, which I think is like the heart of creating content, is being genuine with people and providing value. Matt mentioned that he got his job at Stack Overflow, which is the first big name he's had on his resume. Just imagine the weight a name like Stack Overflow carries in your career and what that can lead to later on. And then lastly, Patrick mentioned several things that I think kind of sum up all the benefits that we'll talk about today. Comfortable side income, job opportunities, especially remote roles that pay higher than the average salaries where he's from in Germany. Made the switch from software developer to developer advocate and built a great network and even made new friends. I like to pretend that I'm one of those friends that he's mentioning in there. I don't know if that's true. You'll have to ask him, but I kind of throw myself in this Twitter friend category. And there's lots of really good takeaways from that, right? Lots of benefits in your career. We'll talk more about them. But overall, what I see from that is that it's a hell of a lot of impact. Different people, it's a prompted question, but not looking for any specific responses, just looking for the impact that this has had on their career, and they over and over again talk about all these things and all these benefits and the impact that it's had and it's driven for them. And I want to tell you how it's done the same for me. So my name is James Q. Quick, and if you want to find me on social, connect. If you want to take a picture and post it on Twitter, thank you, friends. James Q. Quick on TikTok, YouTube, Twitter is where I spend a lot of my time, so feel free to connect there and reach out and all those things. And I am a developer, a speaker, and a teacher. I've considered myself to be that for several years now. I've been doing some combination of those things professionally for about 10 years, which is really hard to believe. So I guess about the time that All Things Open started, I was getting my start as a developer, a speaker, and a teacher. But most importantly and most relevantly today is that as of 4 months ago, I am now a full-time technical content creator. And if you're anything like me, and you're real with yourself, and you hear someone say that, your initial reaction has to be, that's ridiculous. Like, we live in this age now where you hear the 20-something-year-old who doesn't have a job and says they want to be a content creator with not generating revenue, not having a plan, all these things. That's my reaction when I hear it. And honestly, I feel really weird saying I'm a content creator full-time. But I think it's important to share that, and I think it's important to tell my story to really emphasize the fact that content creation is a real job. It is a real thing. You can share all the memes that you want. You can make memes about content creators and that not being a real job or whatever it is, but it is a real job. And I want to start with some ways that content creators use content. They use content in a lot of different ways on a daily basis. They use it to teach. That's my primary goal in content, is I use that as a teaching mechanism. They use it to entertain. Lots of us probably spend too much time on TikTok like I do, from entertainment value and learning. To build audiences, to bring people together, and to express themselves. So let's take a look at a few stats. It's a random article, so take the numbers with a grain of salt, I guess, but I've got a link in here if you want to check out the article later. But the first one is that the influencer market is going to, at the end of 2022, probably reach $16.4 billion. A lot of money out there in content marketing for content creators to go and get a piece of. A lot of money. There's also a slide here about, with a graph of searches on Google for influencer marketing. You can see obviously that is continuing to go up and up. You can probably imagine that went up even more in the last couple of years with COVID, with content becoming a bigger piece of developer advocate team strategies. When they couldn't be in person, online content became more of a focus for them. And here's a really fun one, I think. 52% of creators earning $50,000 to $100,000 a year spend 10 or less hours per week on content creation. Again, random article, take it with a grain of salt, but it's something to maybe start a conversation, and maybe the conversation starts with memes again. Like, it's easy to look at, like, that's so ridiculous, you do nothing, you get paid lots of money. Like, back in my day, we had to earn it, we had to go out and work our 60, 80-hour weeks, etc. It's just jealousy, right? Like, there's not a person in this room, if you could make your same salary and only work 10 hours a week, you wouldn't do it. Anybody not take that deal? What if I offered you 90% of your salary? So you took a 10% pay cut, but then you only had to work 10 hours a week. Take it? You could go down and down and down from there. But the reality is, we're just looking at this as something new that we're not used to, and it's easy to judge what you don't know, and it's especially easy to judge what you aren't able to do. And I want to caveat that a little bit, because Jason Langsdorff mentioned this in the keynote earlier, this idea that people have for themselves of themselves not being capable of doing something they see other people do. You see me on stage, you assume I'm a natural speaker, you have no idea the talks that I've given that were terrible. You see other people do other things at a professional level and assume you're not capable of that same exact thing. The reality is you are. It takes a lot of work and effort and consistency, which we'll talk about. So after that, it's probably no surprise that, again, random article, but 85% of full-time content creators say they enjoy their work. You're working 10 hours a week, making 50 to 100K, you're probably pretty happy with what you do, I imagine. But think about, like, in any other industry, and I don't have numbers to compare, but in any other industry, what do you think that percentage would be? You ask a room full of 1,000 people in any industry, do you enjoy your job? How many of those people would say yes? And a genuine yes. So I want to talk a little bit about what content creation means for me at this point. It means I'm a lot of things. It means I'm a videographer. It means I'm a video editor. I'm a sound engineer. I'm a writer. I'm a marketer, copywriter, admin, accountant, networker, and much, much more. As a full-time content creator, I don't get to just do one thing. I have to learn how to create content, make the content better, do all the administration work that comes with it, do all the marketing to share it with people, figure out how to talk and get on stage to present myself to people. I have to do a lot of stuff. And that's kind of overwhelming at times. It's very stressful at times. But it also kind of leads to this new learning opportunity in a lot of different avenues that previously I never would have seen myself doing. For me, it also means that I work for myself. I like to think that my boss is very flexible. I get lots of time off. I can travel when I want. I can work when I want. So I think that's worked out pretty well. I also have 100% control over what I do. It's kind of hard to come by. A lot of people have autonomy. They have the ability to do what they think is right at a company. But getting to 100% autonomy, 100% control is a difficult thing to accomplish or to get to a stage in your career. I also work from home with my wife. Working from home is more and more popular now, so it's not super, super special. But it is special for me the time that we get to spend together as she's working for Auth0, a tech company I used to work at, doing events and sponsorships. And so we get to kind of talk about events and strategies and things that we do, so we get to brainstorm that and just spend time together, which is really nice. I make good money. I think this is probably, like, if you're being honest with yourselves, and my reaction to full-time content creators is how much you make as a content creator. I'm happy to have any like transparent conversations after if you're curious. We can talk about them. I don't have like detailed slides, but I will say one highlight for me is my first month doing content creation in August. That first full month, I made the equivalent of what my salary was at my previous job in a month span. It was a pretty special moment to look at myself as my own boss, to have 100% control over everything that I do. Every minute of the day is based on how I want to spend it, and I was able to generate the same amount of money that another company with millions of dollars of funding was willing to pay me. But most importantly, and at the end of this, all the things I do from a content creation perspective come from a place, a passion of loving to teach. And so with content creation, I get to teach and impact people all over the world. And I've got a short story about this. We were chatting, I think, with Tim before about my trip to London and Berlin. It was actually for my wife, so I got to tag along. Her flight, her hotel, her food is paid for, so we just tagged me along. And we were in Berlin, and we were there for an event that she was doing, but one of my former coworkers, one of her current teammates, and I had some time. We were going to do a bus tour in Berlin. Never been to Berlin before, want to go and see all the sights, like do all the things, right? And so we walk up to the big red bus tour, whatever it is, and there's a guy on the street selling tickets, and I walk up, and we're looking to get tickets. He says, "Oh, do you do YouTube?" This is in Berlin on the other side of the world from where I live and where I spend my time. And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh, I watch your videos. It's so cool to meet you." If you know me very well, ego is not my problem. So like I could take that ego boost. I was very excited about that. But the most impactful part of that conversation was that he continued to tell me that he watches my videos because he's self-taught. He's self-taught, he's looking to transition into a career in tech. And some of my videos were what he referenced to learn basics of JavaScript, to prepare for interviews, etc. And he ended up, like, kind of awkward, interesting. The bus, like, was loaded up, ready to go. And we're on the street, and he's talking to me. And I'm like, "Oh, does the bus need to go?" And he's like, "Oh, no, I know the guy." And he proceeds to, like, ask me this interview question that he got in JavaScript so we could talk about it on the street in Berlin while he held up the bus from everybody else leaving. But ego aside, that being a part of someone's journey of transitioning careers, use my language, that's the shit that this is about. That's what this means for me. When I talk about having a passion for teaching, that's the kind of journey that I get to be a part of from being able to impact and teach people across the world. Now, what's interesting, YouTube is such a useful resource. That's where I spend the majority of my time with content. YouTube is an amazing resource to the point where you can learn anything. You can learn to do anything on YouTube that you ever want. A couple years ago, I started to do woodworking projects. I built an arcade cabinet, like with the electronics and the wood from scratch for my nephews for Christmas. Never in my life had I ever used a saw until then. YouTube. I've done a few different projects since then, and my wife was going to Australia for another work trip, so she was going to be gone for 13, 14 days. When I'm home alone without her, I need something to do because otherwise I get like stressed out. I need to put myself in a position where I'm distracted, right? So I decided I would build a built-in, I don't know if this has a highlighter, but a built-in kind of dining banquet table thing, seating in our eat-in kitchen for a dining table. So the dining table slides over, and it's got hinges, and you can pull it up for storage and stuff, and it's like by far not perfect, but it's pretty cool for someone who learned this on YouTube, I think. And so this reminds me of a quote that I've come across in a song, a rap song actually. It says, "I'm spending my time and money gaining knowledge. YouTube is the new school, forget college." Anybody heard that? Have you actually? I love that you tried, because the point of this is that no one's heard it because I wrote that damn song. It's a different rap that you probably haven't heard. Fun fact, that was me who wrote that. And this was in a song that I wrote in 2016. which is basically a year recap for me. And that was about the time that I started to look at content. I don't know what exactly, but as a way to do something, but more importantly, as a way to learn. This was when I was transitioning my career, getting into web development. I'd never done web development JavaScript before then. I was watching YouTube video after YouTube video. I was downloading YouTube videos so that I could watch them in a player at 4 times speed. Like, I was obsessed. And that was one of the highlights for me as I wrote that song, looking back at my 2016. That was one of the highlights that stuck out to me as the power behind YouTube / the power of content. And so I mentioned this earlier. I'm going to do something that scares the hell out of me, but in an effort to add a little bit of context, to give you a little bit of my soul and my personality, I've got a video that I did. It's a rap that I did that was referencing me crossing 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. So it was about my journey. And if you'll give me like a little bit of encouragement, because otherwise I won't do it, I will play this 1 minute and 1.5 minute rap video of me about my journey to 100,000 subscribers.
Road to 100. People see the views and the accolades and think it must come easy, but I've been grinding at this for years now. I've been putting in work. Road to 100.
Let's go. Wake up in the morning, hit the studio, lights on, got the mic on, video, let's go. I'm grinding, gotta ship that content. This burden knowledge is time spent. I just get this urge, turn the camera on, then I purge. From in my head, let it emerge. If I spring a leak, just let it surge. So let's talk numbers, break down the stats. Spent a couple of years going at it hard, but got no at bats. Spent a lot of sweat and a lot of tears, but still no plaque. Making pennies on the dollar, I wasn't making no racks. I remember that day, I checked the line, I made 15 cents. Couple thousand subscribers in, kinda nice, but I wasn't paying no rent. But I kept grinding, put a lot of time in getting better each day, and I started to roll. Hit the snowball effect, I was getting cold and started crushing my goals. I hit 10K in May 2020, I took off like a rocket. End of the year I had 30K, and I had a little bit more cash in my pocket. And it started to feel real, my thoughts on 100K, I will. All doubt gone with a clear head, this goal of mine I'm about to kill.
40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, road to 100.
We were talking about nerves before getting on stage and how they don't go away before I get on stage, but as soon as I hit that first, second, third slide, you find that like the rhythm, you feel comfortable, all that went to hell by doing that in front of a room full of however many people this is. So this is like a cool thing for me to share, but it actually does tie into the story. And the piece of this is that one thing I've learned, the more people I've met, the more people I've gotten to not just surfacely meet, but learn more about, is that everyone has something special. Everyone has a passion. Everyone has a hidden hobby, whether it's chickens or I don't know. That's just the one that came to mind, Heather, because you're right here. Everyone has a hobby, a passion, an interest, a thing that they do that other people don't know about that's special about them. And for me, rap has been a creative outlet and therapy, to be quite honest, for about 10 plus years. Different deaths that I've gone through in my family, the next day or that week, these are probably songs you'll never hear. I wrote a song about that as part of my healing process and my therapy. So that creative outlet means something very special to me. It's a different part of me that you probably wouldn't have expected. I doubt, for people that don't know me that well and have never seen any of my rap stuff before, I doubt I got on the stage and you're like, oh, it's James the rapper. Probably not the look that I was getting across. But that's a piece of me that I think is special, and everyone here has some additional piece of them that is additionally special. And my big takeaway from that is that tech is more than just writing code. Being a developer is more than just writing code. We saw a keynote this morning about soft skills and how equally, if not more important they are than the technical skills, and I'm a 100% believer in that. And one of the things that I would encourage people to do, and this is part of like why I do content now, is look at those things that you do on the side for fun, the things that you're interested in on the side for fun, and figure out, maybe, maybe not, if there's a way to tie that into your career. Because the cool thing for me now, as I stand on the stage talking about being a full-time content creator, is I've been creating content on the side for years. That's the stuff, lots of us do things on the side, but those are the nights and weekend hours that I've been putting in that I now get to call my full-time career. So let's talk a little bit more about my personal journey, and we'll talk a little bit to start about kind of growing up and my parents. So my parents combined salary-wise never made more than $45,000 or $50,000 at a time. There were different periods of times where one of them was unemployed, so like that number could have been lower, and that's not poverty level by any means. This is not my story about how I didn't have anything, but I didn't have a lot. But most importantly with that is my parents had jobs, they never had careers, and that's a very big difference. I never saw from my parents or my immediate family the vision of a career, the working towards that next promotion, the getting a salary increase and feeling rewarded, feeling appreciated at a job. I never experienced that from them. I never saw that. A job was just a job. It was something that was required to put food on the table. They never had careers. And it's kind of interesting. My dad had a law degree, super, super smart. Practiced law, I don't know how long, 6 months maybe. Decided he didn't like it. And semi-nobly decided hey, I could make a good career in this, but I'd rather do something that I enjoy. Semi-nobly. Like if you leave something that you don't enjoy, that would make more money to make less money, but it is something you enjoy, great. The problem is, my dad left something that he didn't enjoy and left more money to go do something that he still didn't enjoy and still made no money. So it didn't really pan out in that sense. And my point is, if you would have told me growing up that jobs could be fun, if you would have told me that you can be excited to go to work, you can be excited about the work that you're doing, you could think about that in a positive light, I had no context for that being a thing. I never knew that you could control your career to the point to put yourself in a position to do the things that you enjoy, be proud of what you do, be fulfilled by what you do, and feel appreciated by the people in the company around you. So in 2013, I graduated from Vanderbilt with a computer science degree. I feel like I'm one of the weird people who has a computer science degree. I didn't get the value out of it that I should. I didn't really study. I just focused on getting good grades, which is fine. I got good grades. I graduated. It helped me get an interview with Microsoft. Microsoft was one that recruited on campus, and I had an interview like most of the other candidates for a software engineer role. I remember to this day they asked me what I think is one of the silliest interviewing questions I've ever heard, but they took it very seriously. And the question was, what's the number of lines of the biggest project code base that you've ever worked on? I think that's probably something I should have been prepared for, but still to this day annoys the hell out of me because of how silly that is. It's fine. It's something you could talk about, but I had no context. So I couldn't answer the question. 5 lines, 5,000 lines, I don't know. Needless to say, I didn't get that role. But the recruiter that I had met was a big enough fan of mine. Looking back, it was more from probably the soft skills perspective than anything. And he said, hey, we have a TAM role, a technical account manager. I don't know much about that, but sure, it's Microsoft. So I flew out to DC in college, took a flight by myself, had a rental car, the hotel, everything's paid for. There's 30 of us. We go on site to interview. We do all of our interviews. We get done. They've got a room full of 20 of us or whatever, and they tell us all that we didn't get hired. We didn't get the job. Super awkwardly sent us back to the hotel in a limo. Only the people together that didn't get hired. So uncomfortable, because you'd think you'd be, oh, I'm in a limo. This is a big deal. Not when you just found out you didn't get hired. So that was awkward. But one of the things that I mentioned in that interview, when they asked me where I saw myself in 5 years, I talked about walking into a barbershop and having relationships with the people that work there. Checking in, seeing how people are doing, ongoing relationship. Looking back, that was a dumb answer for the context of what I was interviewing for, and I just made that up on the spot because I didn't prepare, I didn't think about that, although it's a pretty simple question. So looking back for that specific context, that didn't fit. What they recognize, though, is a person with a computer science degree who cares about people, wants to be around people, not so common of the stereotype for a developer. And so they reached back out for a third role called a technical evangelist. At the time, I had no idea what that was. All you can do is laugh at how ridiculous the title of technical evangelist is. Now it's become more popular. Now developer advocate has become the more common name. You'll see both. But I interviewed for that, and it was kind of everything that I was already excited about. It was about working with people, teaching people, learning how to build stuff, etc. So that's what I did. And really interestingly, I had interned at FedEx as a software developer. I got an offer from them, and then I got an offer from Microsoft. Offer in Memphis, so like location is a little bit different. Offer in Memphis was $54,000. The offer from Microsoft was $90,000. Different city, cost of living is a little bit different, but my big takeaway from that is that different companies value you differently. I was still the same person. I still had the exact same skill set. I still had the exact same lack of fundamental computer science knowledge that I should have had. Exact same person, different job, drastically different salary. And this is a key moment for me of looking at the fact, and my recommendation for people to learn is if you can do something that you enjoy as much as you do now and make more money, go and do that. Like you have to figure out the balance if you're sacrificing what you enjoy for money or vice versa. But if you can do something that you still enjoy to the same extent and make more money, go and do that. So, Russ, you'll appreciate this. At 22, I started my career. Russ is on the front here. This is a random, it was on Facebook that I went and grabbed. But at the age of 22, I was giving talks to audiences, oftentimes full of developers that were older than I had been alive, had written code longer than I had been alive at the time. Which is a pretty intimidating thing, but I got more and more comfortable with it. I got on more stages like this. I did more presentations and more workshops, etc. And I really enjoyed it. So I did that for 3 years. Got to live out my dream of moving to New York City and live there, my ultimate dream in the world at the time. And we were kind of ready to maybe move away from New York. My wife is from Tampa, I'm from Memphis, and like when you're not near either family, holidays get really, really challenging. So we were kind of thinking about moving, and my dad got really sick, so we ended up moving back to Memphis, which is where I'm from, and went to work at FedEx. So I'd interned at FedEx. I reached out to them to say, hey, I'm moving back to Memphis. Do you have any roles? They said, we just acquired this company. We're hiring like crazy. Yes. And so a couple months later, I started at FedEx, which worked out really well. Now, the interesting thing for me, and developer advocates can attest to this, having done technical evangelism, developer advocacy, fresh out of college, I didn't have any engineering experience. I did some demos. I didn't have real-world tech experience. I didn't know what it was like to create, build, maintain a real-world application. I had no context for that. I'd never done that before. And so I walked into a new role at a new company as a software engineer, not knowing how I'd stack up against other developers. And I did well. I learned really quickly. I was already really excited about what I was doing, so learning was easy. Spending time investing in it was easy. And I would say that went really well. But my secret power when I joined FedEx was my voice. I had spent 3 years being on a stage. I had spent 3 years leading workshops. I had spent 3 years building my own networks in the community. I had spent 3 years building my own communities and being involved in those communities. I had been doing that for 3 years. So where most people or many people in their career don't find their voice, that was the first thing I found in my career. So at FedEx, when we would have to explain something technical to a VP or someone less technical, I could do that. I had been doing that. When we had internal team conversations about which way to go, I could step in and be a voice of reason. When we needed to learn something new, I could go and learn that technically and then also have the voice to communicate that to other people on the team. So my voice was my superpower, and this was all from all those aspects of developer advocacy, technical evangelism that I had been doing for several years. A big part of it being speaking on stages, creating content in general. So I had a conversation with my manager. I was a for what it's worth, a level 2 engineer at that time, and a level 3 requirement was 5 years of experience. I was at 4 years and 10 months, depending on how you look at it. So I was like just maybe eligible for a promotion to a level 3. Went and talked to my manager. I said, I want to be a leader in technology. I want, when we have to find something new, I want to be the person who can go and do research and communicate that to a team and help make decisions across more than just my team. That was my career goal, maybe the next handful of years or whatever. And she came back a couple of days later and she said, we have this architect position available. We think it's a good fit for what you said you're interested in. And then architect level position, which I did take, was a skip level promotion for me. So from a level 2, skipping senior level up to a level 4. I don't know how it works at your companies, especially at FedEx. That doesn't happen very often. But that all came from my superpower of my voice, of being comfortable communicating, going back to the idea of soft skills and people skills, however you want to phrase it, being equally, if not more as important as your technical skills, was a testimony to me making that transition in my career. Now, while I was doing that, it was a good job. I enjoyed it. It was solid. I was missing something. All the things that I had been doing at Microsoft, being on stages, creating content, I was missing those things, and I decided to start doing them again. And so I was fortunate enough to get time off to go speak at conferences, but it wasn't paid for, so I was paying out of pocket to go speak at conferences. And I was creating content on nights and weekends and all these things. And I decided, why don't I make that a job again? Why don't I get somebody to pay me to do that thing that I love to do that I'm already spending my extra time doing? And so I interviewed at Auth0. Kim was actually the person who interviewed me at the time, and we worked together for a month, I think. And at the time, I ended my salary at FedEx at $90,000. I then got an offer at Auth0 at the time for $120,000. And I was reminded of the fact that different companies value people differently. They will value you differently. Same person, same skill set, different role, but still the same person and same experience for that boost. And the cool thing about it, as a developer advocate, which is the role that I applied for, a lot of what you do is this: create content, speak at conferences, etc. And my YouTube, I think, really became my proof for that. Kim and I haven't talked about her perspective on this. But words on a resume are just words on a resume, right? You can write whatever the hell you want on a resume. It doesn't actually mean anything. It's just a factor that you have to get past to get in the door to then have your interview and hopefully impress somebody there. It's just words on a resume. But what YouTube did for me and what it could do for other people is bear proof. So if you want to know how I communicate to people, go watch a video. If you want to know if I have the capability of learning new technical things, go watch a video. If you want to know if I know how to communicate those technical things to equally technical and or less technical people, go and watch a video. At this point in my career, I've got 500 videos that I've created, which is a ton. So if you want proof of those things, go watch a video. I don't need to give you a portfolio. Portfolio to many people, especially early on as you're looking for first job, early job, is it's a standard website, and there's nothing wrong with this, but a standard website where you have portfolio at the top, you have your projects that you worked on, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Node, Express, Angular, whatever, and then links to GitHub repos, etc. That's what the traditional portfolio is, but portfolio for different roles at different stages of your career can mean totally different things. My portfolio at this point in my career is my content. If you want proof of any of my skills, go and watch any of the things I've done in the past, or read any of the things that I've done in the past. So a big takeaway from that perspective is that content carries a lot of weight. I've seen it play out over and over again, whether or not somebody has aspirations of doing content full time, whether they want to be a developer advocate specifically, it doesn't really matter, but I've seen it play over and over again where content has become people's hack to navigating their career. So speaking of YouTube, this is where I've spent the majority of my time. This is what my biggest audience is at this point. And I want to kind of show you how that's progressed. So right now, I'm about 170,000 subscribers on YouTube. In 2017, I made no money, and I gained in the entire year 163 subscribers. 2018, I gained 1,500, 1.4 subscribers, and I got monetized, and I made my first money from YouTube. I literally called one of my best friends and said, like, I've got 15 cents that I've made. Like, I'm making money from content that I've created. 15 cents. I actually, in that video, if you paid attention that I showed, it mentioned that. 2019, I gained 4,000 subscribers, and I made $2,200. Now, as a YouTuber, I've got $2,000 I can invest into equipment and stuff, right? Like, I can start to build this thing up that I already enjoy doing. In 2020, I gained 20,000 subscribers. I made $4,000. So still seeing that progression. It's not like exponential or anything, but it's still moving in the right direction. And then in 2021, I published this video. It was just about me highlighting a built-in extension in VS Code, my favorite editor, of how I could use that instead of Postman. It's my first, I've got 2 total that have crossed 1 million, but that's the first video that I've ever published that has over 1 million views, which I actually remember being in high school thinking about like creating something and having 1 million views at some point, and like that actually became a reality without thinking about it at that point. And then in 2021, I gained 90,000 subscribers and made $21,000 in ads. The point of this is it's easy to look at someone on stage. It's easy to look at someone that gives a keynote and the big, huge one. It's easy to look at someone that creates content and assume they've always been good at that, assume they started out at that level. But when we actually pay attention, we know that that's never the case. There is no overnight success. I was creating videos back in 2000, all right, this isn't working, in 2017 where no one cared. I then created videos in 2018 where some people cared, 19, more, and made more money, etc. 2022, interestingly, is down for me. So I've made almost 15,000, so it'll probably be a little short of the 20 that I made last year. Probably won't have near the amount of subscribers, but that's just kind of how it goes. But the key here is if you take anything away from a content perspective, it's consistency. If you want advice for how to do content, it's hands down consistency. I created videos for several years where no one cared. No offense, none of you cared. And then all of a sudden, things pick up. Now this will lead me into kind of the closing section here to kind of bring this full circle to where I am now. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So the code is 1010. Cool. That's fine. Just so I'm double checking, my time is still appropriate? Like that's the right time? Okay. We're good. So, in 2022, wherever we are, in the summer, in July, I got let go from my company. I was working at PlanetScale, database company. This was a new transition for me. I've never been a database person, per se. It was a learning experience. It was a new team. I was going to work with a few people that I knew I enjoyed. Really loved the team. Everything, like, really positive to say about everything there. But I got a meeting put on my calendar with my CEO in July. And it was a 10-minute meeting, and I sent him a message in Slack, anything I need to prepare, no response. Get into the meeting, HR is there. And they're like, oh, we should wait for the CEO to get here. And I'm like, that's not good. So as soon as he gets in, hey, how's it going? Sad to tell you, this is your last day at PlanetScale. As soon as he finished that sentence, I got notifications on my computer, sign out of Zoom, sign out of Slack, sign out of Gmail, all the thing, done. That's it. And I think a lot of who we are, where we go in life is based on how you handle adversity, right? That was certainly an adversity time for me. But I took Friday off. That was a Thursday. I took Friday off. My wife and I went to play golf. We went out and actually had a nice dinner. Maybe it wasn't the best decision, but like had a nice dinner, played golf, had a good night, right? Had 2 days off for the weekend. And I made my decision. I was going to be what I had dreamed of. That actually makes me emotional. What I had dreamed of for several years was to be a full-time content creator. So Monday morning, There was no hesitation. There was no delay. Monday morning, I was a full-time content creator, and I got down to work. I was supposed to time that better with the slides, but I messed it up, so. Yay! Now, the one big piece of that, like, understand everyone, like, especially in times as they are, because there's layoffs happening left and right, like, it's a tough time. And the thing I want to emphasize for everyone that you will always have with you is your brand. That's my brand. Like, there's other pieces of it, but that's me. The content that I create is under that name on all these different channels. You can find me in a lot of different places, but that brand carries its own weight, and it carries with me regardless of what happens to me in my career, regardless of what company I'm working for, to the point where before I decided I was going to do full-time content, I put a message out on Twitter to say, I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but if anyone's hiring, let me know. Send me a DM. Yeah, you send me one. I got about 100 DMs from, hey, we have this job posting, hey, we'd love to talk, hey, we'd like to blah, blah, blah. That's based on the reputation that I had created for myself in the community over the course of several years. Again, not everyone is at that stage, but that's the benefit that content had for me in my career up until that point, and now enables me to do this full time. So a few takeaways as we wrap up. I think one of the things we struggle with as content creators is how to stay genuine while also then turning that into a business. That's a tough thing to do. You're having to make financial decisions that you maybe haven't thought about before. You're having to think about generating income, because before I could just have whatever extra income I had and had a good salary. Now this is my real income. But I want you to know that it's perfectly okay and possible to remain genuine with the stuff that you create while also getting paid really well to do it. I mentioned this a second ago. Your brand is forever. It's the one thing in your career that you have 100% ownership of, that will then carry with you from job to job, from company to company. We talked about this a little bit last night. I think you're back there in the middle. Getting started is the key. You want to do content and you're looking for advice on how to get started, the advice is get started. No matter what equipment you don't have, no matter what rehearsal you haven't done, no matter what lack of editing skills you have, just get started, because the way I built my audience and my brand was creating content when no one cared. But while I was doing that, I was creating content iteratively over and over and over again to the point where I got better and better every time, and I could pay attention every time to what people respond to. So as we wrap up, I've got one kind of like additional cool announcement for myself. I won't name the conference because I'm at a conference here, but I have my first big stage keynote that's coming up in January that I'm really excited about, and I want to just mention how that came up. I've decided this is a step that I want to take in my career. I want to pursue more of those types of opportunities. If anybody's looking for keynoters, let me know. But I mentioned that to the organizer of this conference that I went to in the summer, and we were just chatting, and he was really appreciative. Dude, you're doing such a good job. I appreciate all the things you do in the community and the content and the things. And I was like, yeah, I kind of want to take a next step and from a speaking perspective and do more keynotes, or start to do keynotes. He was like, dude, come keynote in January for me. Okay. But that conversation is easy. What isn't easy is having done all the work leading up to that, to have earned that person's trust, to know that he can trust me to go and do a good job as a keynote. So as you leave today, I've got one homework assignment for you. Lots of us already do this on a regular basis. But the homework assignment is to share something. Being a content creator makes it seem really intense. Break it down, really simple, share something. And I like to do something you learned, something you built, something you taught. I have a Discord community, Learn, Build, Teach. You can find it at learnbuildteach.com. And that's also my personal motto. So something you learned, something you built, something you taught, go and share that. A tweet, a post, maybe it's a video, maybe it's something small like Slack, whatever it is. Because if you make it a habit, there's a chance you could work for yourself, you could have 100% control, you could learn something new, you could work from home with 100% freedom, You could make good money, you could make an important connection, you could teach and impact people all over the world. My name is James Q. Quick. I'm a full-time technical content creator. Thank you.